short hopping the football to people. And then these fumbles that they're in the worst times, in the worst spots. The Eagles are making a drive this past week against Seattle. And what does he do? He puts the ball on the ground. And then what's he do? He throws an interception. It's moments like that make me worried that the money was too soon.
Look, I made the point, and I know you didn't agree with me then, but I was nervous for this team to fork out that kind of money for this guy just because I felt like I wanted to see more. I felt like they rushed that extension a little bit. I would have rather seen another year out of him. And look, I do think some of the things that he's doing is to try to compensate for the fact that this team, from a skill position standpoint, especially at wide receiver, lacks so much talent right now because of all the injuries that have hit this team. And the fact that, look, the Eagles didn't do that great of a job in putting a lot of weapons from the wide receiver position around him. Deshaun Jackson has been an injury risk everywhere he's been. Ever since he went to Washington and Tampa, just ask any fantasy owner that's ever drafted him. You get 3 to 4 games a year out of him, and the rest of the time he's either a decoy or he's out. And then Alshon has gotten to the point in his career where when he's on the field, he runs like he's 35 or 36. He does not run his age.
Right. I think his time's coming to an end for sure.
So I think that they needed to do something else at the wide receiver position and get a more durable wide receiver. Maybe they don't have the top end speed of a guy like Deshaun, but it doesn't do you any good when he's not on the field. So I think that's somewhere this year in the draft, in a draft that's going to be super rich with wide receiver talent. They're going to have to get some talent around him to really evaluate him at this point, because you can't put guys out there around him trying to get open and create separation where they literally should either be on a practice squad or in the XFL. And that's what you're doing when you're throwing guys out there who are 6th, 7th, 8th on the depth chart. They are special teamers at best or practice squad guys. And you're throwing them in versus some of the best teams in the NFL and the Patriots and against Seattle. And you're asking them to get open, get separation. So I do think that plays in Wentz's mind, where I would like to try to evaluate him with the entire team healthy. And look, they've got issues on the offensive line too. You guys paid a bunch of money to Brooks. He's got these anxiety issues creeping up. He can't stay on there. That doesn't help out either when you start having to replace starting linemen. So I think, Eric, both these teams have a lot of issues. And that was the whole point of this, is there's really not a lot of positive things to say about this, neither one of these teams at this point. And one of them is going to get a home playoff game. When you see these teams now, do you think over the next 5 weeks that whoever wins this division, do they have any chance wild card weekend to actually get a home victory, or is it going to be one and done for the NFC East winner?
That's going to depend on which one it is, in my opinion, because if the Eagles aren't healthy, they're one and done. The Cowboys have the talent, you would think, to make at least a wild card run, maybe to the conference championship. So to me, I think the best team to represent the NFC East in the playoffs would be the Dallas Cowboys, just based on potential that's on the field right now. If the Eagles were healthy, I would say it would be them. But the problem at this point now is, as you pointed out, they haven't been healthy all year. So even having all of those pieces back coming in over the next 5 weeks, you're not all going to gel together and have all your timing right just to go into the playoffs and win a playoff game. So ultimately, I think the Cowboys stand the best chance to do any kind of damage in the playoffs out of the NFC East.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I just think that they have enough talent on that team. And look, they got to stay healthy, especially guys like Zeke and Cooper. Those are the main guys that have to figure out a way to stay on the field for Dallas. But I think they have a better chance of putting it together. They got a playoff win at home last year against Seattle. So if they would have to play Seattle, I think they would have some confidence there. And then the same with Minnesota. You're going to put Kirk Cousins under the bright lights of a playoff game, probably going to be in a primetime spot with it being at Dallas and just the ratings machine that they are. So I would tend to agree with you there. But Eric, there's a lot of other teams. Look, the Cowboys have Dak. They're probably going to give him a ton of money this offseason. The Eagles already paid up for Wentz, so they are hoping their guys work out. There's a lot of teams right now that are struggling at the quarterback position, and not all of them are as fortunate as what Baltimore has right now in Lamar Jackson, a guy they picked up at the back end of the first round a few years ago. Really, there was a lot of doubt that first year if this guy was going to even be able to make it. All of a sudden, they kind of turned the reins over to him. You saw some of it last year. They had a whole offseason to really turn things around, and he has really taken off for this team, and he put a showcase game on tape on Monday Night Football, Eric, as they absolutely just thrashed the Rams. So before we get into the teams that need quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson has really taken the league right now by storm. He looks like the front runner for the MVP. I mean, how shocked are you right now after what we saw last year, especially in that playoff game when the Chargers came into Baltimore and really whooped the Ravens and made Lamar look bad, that now swing that forward to 10 or so months later, we're talking about Lamar Jackson as the front runner for the MVP.
I got to give a lot of credit to this young man because he turned his career around. And I don't mean that he was some, has been dust up, just he was going nowhere. I think he always believed that he could be a quarterback in the NFL. In fact, he believed it a lot more than the talking heads out there. There's famous tweets going around that don't, as you call them back, they don't look so good. Damian Woody saying that when Lamar Jackson was at Louisville, he better switch to the wide receiver position because that's the only way he was going to be successful in the NFL. And so it's just funny to bring those up now and see that hindsight really is revisionist history at this point, because I would be in that camp. When Harbaugh pulled the string on Flacco last year and said, we're going with Lamar, I thought, okay, at least he's committed. And you and I even talked about, is Harbaugh just trying to go down with the ship? Maybe he's actually a genius, even more so than everybody thinks his brother is. Maybe John Harbaugh is actually the genius, because Lamar Jackson has committed clearly in this offseason to being a pocket passer. He still can run like crazy. I mean, his speed, just watching him in prime time in
like
that
Madden.
game, I loved it.
It's like holding the turbo button on Madden.
I got to tell you, I love watching Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, even Russell Wilson to some extent, but Lamar Jackson, to watch him play against the Rams the other night was just unbelievable, because you're right. It's like the turbo buttons. Just hold down the right bumper and just let him go. But his passes, Justin, were just on target, frozen ropes, just lightning rods right into. I texted my buddy who's a huge Mahomes fan, and I was teasing him. Like, I sent him one text that said Jackson and then the greater than symbol Mahomes, and he just got all fired up. Look, Lamar Jackson's leading the league in QBR, and that's just a fact. He's got 24 TDs to 5 interceptions, only 20 sacks. He's evasive as anything. And although he's not leading the league in yards passing, he's also not last place by any means. He's almost 2,500 yards passing, but his rushing is unbelievable. He adds a dynamic to that team, and the Ravens lead the league now in point differential of offense, points for against points allowed. So it's the Ravens, the Patriots, and then the 49ers. Those three teams are far and above everyone else in differential. And so if you're not giving Lamar Jackson credit for that turnaround in Baltimore, a team that I thought was going to finish third in that AFC division, it's crazy.
Well, I also think, though, this is a perfect story that really illustrates where we are in terms of the media covering sports, where everything is gotten to the point where it's quarter by quarter that we're trying to judge people, and even play by play. And that's why there's so many of these tweets that age badly.
Yeah.
Because even I thought the Monday night game, Lisa Salters had a report where she talked about Lamar Jackson saying his rookie year, he couldn't even throw a spiral, that the NFL ball felt different and he was throwing ducks. So if you're at the practice and you're watching this, or you're watching him in preseason, watching him warm up, watching him in the media portion of practice throughout the week, and you're watching him throw wobblers and ducks and he's very inaccurate, there's going to be a part of you that's going to say, hey, I don't know. Maybe this guy with his speed, maybe he'd be better off. But we don't ever give people a time to get out on the field and really see how they're going to progress after a couple years. That's why now when we talk about some of these quarterbacks that we just talked about, Wentz, he's been in the league long enough now and has enough starts. We have a pretty good book on him. Last year, we didn't have enough on Lamar. We talked about it even back to with Tebow and some of these other guys where they play so differently. You have to be able to build your team around them. And that's what Baltimore did. They have a power element there. They went out and brought in Mark Ingram. They went into the draft and they got Hollywood Brown that can take the top off the defense. They have 3 tight ends that can all do a little bit of everything. So they have multi-dimensions now where it's not just Crabtree out there as his lone receiver last year. And that's who you're trying to create separation with, a guy who's not even in the league and not even on the radar. They've put pieces around him that make them multi-dimensional now, where, okay, now you've got the defense on your heels, because is Lamar going to run? Are they going to run an RPO? Are they going to run some kind of option action? Is he going to stay in the pocket? Are they going to take a deep shot off the play action? Are they going to play power football? what the Chargers did was put a ton of speed on the field. And they did not have an answer to that. Now they do, because they'll just line up and go, okay, you're going to play 6-7 defensive packs? Then we're just going to go with a heavy package and slam it down your throat. And then we can go into a hurry up and keep your guys on the field and just drive it down your throat. Or if you want to go heavy on the defensive side, we can throw the ball still. So I think that's what they've done, is they've given different options now to this team and to Lamar, and he's shining under this. So
yeah, I remember, Justin, I wasn't sold on Ingram coming there. I remember last year I was like, well, why are they going to do this when you have such a running quarterback? Turns out it was one of the best things they could have done because of the threat. And I got to give Ingram credit too, because he has thrived as that bell cow back. I think his role with Kamara on the Saints and that whole thing, I think that was holding him back. I think he's thriving as a first down or second down, just ground and pound back. And then you mix in Lamar Jackson and what he can do. I think it's a perfect combo, and I was totally wrong about it.
But I also think, too, the way that the Saints played and used him has preserved his career. And it's allowed him to have this kind of pop and to look as fast and as strong as he does this far in his career, because they didn't run him into the ground, because they were spelling him. They were giving him breaks where he wasn't having to run the ball 25 or 30 times a game. So I think that might be something that teams are going to look at going forward, where if you have these guys that have been on a committee, even Tevin Coleman for the 49ers, when he's been on the field, has looked good for them. And he's another guy that split a lot of snaps with Devontae Freeman. So Baltimore's going to be a tough team, Eric. I think right now the odds have them as the front runner to represent the AFC now over the Patriots. So definitely going to be very interesting how that bulls down in the AFC. But let's talk about these teams, Eric, that have a lot of questions at the quarterback position. We were talking pre-show. We could name probably 10 teams right now that have a lot of questions at the quarterback position. And there's some obvious ones on there. Your Miamis, your Cincinnati's, but I think you have to throw teams in like the Steelers, like Jacksonville. The Raiders end up benching Carr. He did not look good. Denver's got a lot of issues. What are the Chargers going to do? The Bears, the Lions going to have to make a decision with Stafford with his back injuries. And then after what we saw Monday night, do the Rams even need to start questioning this? So Eric, I think two of the bigger questions comes out. Guys taken at the top of the draft. You look at where the Rams took Goff, where the Bears took Trubisky. So which situation would you rather have? Would you rather be the Rams locked into a guy like Goff now for the next 4 or 5 years at a huge number, $30+ million a year sitting there on your cap? Or would you rather be a Bears team that's going to have to make a decision about Trubisky? You don't have any first round picks this coming draft, but you're going to have some cap flexibility, and you can maybe go in and get another guy and try this again. Which situation would you rather have at this point based on what you watched from these two guys?
I got to say, I'm not just all out on Goff now. I mean, look, I can't have been all out on Goff 3 years ago and then last year all in on Goff, and then after 11 games this year back all out. And to be fair,
yes, you can. Don't you watch ESPN?
Oh, that's true. Maybe we should be more like those shows. I just think that he's dealt with a lot of things. I mean, one thing he's dealt with is injuries to his backfield and injuries to his receivers. They paid a lot of money for Brandon Cooks, and he's only been out there 50% of the year. So Cooper Kupp, the same thing. I just think it's been an odd year. And I also think McVay is now being outsmarted by defenses. But let me just look at one thing, and this will answer your question. This is not my content. This is a tweet from, Travis Steffen. I don't know who Travis Steffen is, but I do want to give him credit because whoever he is, I don't want to steal his stuff.
Is that your burner account?
There's lots of burner accounts out there, aren't there? We're not talking NBA yet, Justin. No, he said not enough is being made about how screwed the Rams are. They went all in and traded every first round pick until 2022 and then spent lavishly on Goff, Cooks, and Gurley. Now the Rams, they haven't made a first round selection since Jared Goff, and he's on his second contract. And now the team doesn't have another first round pick until 2022. So Justin, to me, as I read that factual information, again, not my content, but reading it off of Twitter, and hopefully the source is good. If I'm the Bears, I like my position better because you're not so deep in on Trubisky that you can't solve that problem. Whereas I think your bed is kind of made if you're the Los Angeles Rams. And I also think that the Bears are not going to solve this through the draft. I think the Bears are going to move some pieces around and potentially get a veteran in there. Maybe a Cam Newton type of guy who maybe you revive his career, give him a second chance. Maybe it's not Cam, maybe it's someone else. Either way, I think the Bears are going to do it more creatively than just trying to draft yet another guy. Whereas